What's going on, guys? Graham Giuseppe Matthews here with BleacherReport.com. And today we're talking to AEW superstar and the host of The Extreme Life of Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy himself, obviously. New episodes available every single Friday with himself and John Alba on Podcast Heat. Matt, my man, what's going on, dude?
Another day in the extreme life of Matt Hardy. It is Wednesday when we're recording this, Dynamite Day, and I actually got to sleep overnight because I was without my young children.
Is that a normal thing where you have Tuesday nights to look forward to because you have Wednesdays with Dynamite and whatever, you're kind of without the kids?
Yeah, as long as my flight typically gets in okay Tuesday evening, Tuesday night, I look forward to Tuesday because I get like a full 6 or 7 hours of sleep. It's not waking up throughout the night and taking care of babies and whatnot.
Yeah, no, I mean, kind of going off that, we mentioned this right before we hit record here, but you got a lot going on right now. Obviously, now you've always been a busy guy, but now more than ever, obviously, Dynamite, people see you there every Wednesday, Rampage on Fridays as well. But in addition to that stuff, obviously, we're going to be talking about it right here. The podcast dropping every Friday, yourself and John Alba. You're booking the indie dates right now. People can follow your YouTube channel, Matt Hardy Brand, for all the announcements on all the indie gigs yourself and Jeff have coming up. How busy is life for Matt Hardy right now?
It's busy. It's hectic. I always tell people, when you think you're busy, when you're single, before you're married, before children, you have no idea what you're talking about. I mean, busy is being married and having a family, especially 4 kids under 6. That is a huge responsibility, and it's very time consuming. Don't get me wrong. It's the most rewarding thing ever. And it's great, but it is a lot of hard work. And between that and just my regular AEW gig and trying to spend time training to stay in shape, especially being a little older, doing this, being on my 30th year in pro wrestling. And now I'm also the one that is taking care of all the bookings with myself and my brother. So that's been very hectic in the best way possible. It's busy in the best way possible, but it is very busy. And then obviously working on the podcast every week too. So it's a busy time. A lot of stuff going on in Matt Hardy's life.
Did you have any reservations going into the podcast, knowing how busy you already are with all the other commitments that you mentioned? Obviously, being a father first and foremost, that's the number one job there. Going into it with John, where you're like, I don't know, I don't even know if I have the time to do this.
Yeah, at first I was definitely worried about, am I putting too much on my plate?
Yep.
And I still have people that offer me other things, but it's something I've kind of wanted to do for a while. I want to try it, and I feel like it's kind of like the natural progression into the next form of me doing something as my in-ring career kind of comes to an end over the course of the next few years. It's something I can start working on and building a base around.
Yeah, I mean, kind of going off that too. I mean, we've seen so many different wrestler podcasts, and your one is specifically different than all the other ones, and revisiting your career, sharing stories, and not kind of going through one specific stage. It's not like, oh, here's one podcast all about the WWE time of your career, AEW, like you did one episode on Adam Page just recently, or Michael P.S. Hayes, and not just stuff that is in your career, but your interactions with Adam Page in Ring of Honor and now in AEW and kind of following his time and stuff like that. Did you come up with that format, or was it a collaboration between yourself and John?
I think that was kind of a collaboration. I think our goal in making the podcast different was to try and like bridge the past with the present. So we may talk about something that happened 25 years ago. We may talk about, obviously a couple weeks ago we did Omega, which showed our journey, which started in, the early 90s, up until the late 90s. We did Omega. And then, a couple weeks before that, we did the Adam Page episode, which basically happened in 2021. So it definitely spans through different periods. And I feel like things in the past, I can take those experiences and I can almost relate them to current day wrestling, because wrestling really has changed so much over the course of, the 30 years I've been doing it. It's insane how much has changed. I mean, when I started, it was the Wild Wild West, and now wrestling has become a little bit more responsible, and it has to, it mirrors society a lot more in many ways, as far as like the places you work. So we definitely wanted the podcast not to have a feel like of an old timer who's just talking about old experiences and sharing those stories. I wanted to share experiences in the past and also in the present and put my current spin on it, how I would relate things in the past of how things were done then, and then how I relate things in the future, how they are done now and how the business has changed.
And you guys are only about like a little over a month into the podcast. You guys have already had a lot of success, a lot of people talking about it. You just had the Ask Men Anything episode just last week as we speak right now before the new episode drops this Friday. Do you have like the structure set at this point? Do you feel like it's found its footing? Like, all right, this is what I wanted it to be. This is what I imagined it to be. I mean, obviously you're always making tweaks and like, all right, I think I could do this better or do a little less of this or more of this or whatever. You guys, like I said, you're only a month in. So you feel like it's found its footing yet? Or are you still in the process of doing that?
I think we have found our footing, and I'll give John Alba credit. We talked about a ton of topics. I had a little brainstorming session, And there was one night he was up and just wired, and he like tried to map out like a year's worth of different
Wow.
episodes and topics we can talk about. So I think we have a pretty good grip on what we're going to do going forward, and we have a pretty good feel of, we'll do one episode that is an event that happened, in the 90s, and then we'll do something that is more current, more modern. And I feel like that kind of helps keep the product fresh as well too.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's exciting for fans too to see all these topics kind of delved into. I'm sure obviously kind of going through their memories and remembering stuff that you did that they don't remember. How many times have you so far in the many episodes, not the handful of episodes you guys have done so far, have you gone through the topics and thought, I don't remember anything about this, or this is a memory I kind of had locked away and I didn't really remember much about it until now?
Yeah, there's been a few of those. I feel like my brain, the locked room that is my mind and my memory, is almost overflowing with so many memories. I've lived quite a full life. So there has been times that John has sent me notes on an episode, and I was like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about this. I forgot this even happened, but that is cool. And now that it's kind of been brought to the forefront of my memory, I do remember some details on it. So that's been a fun part of this journey as well.
It's cool. And like you said earlier, it's crazy how wild the wrestling world is right now. You said how it used to be kind of a little bit like the Wild West, and it's not exactly like that. Obviously, the landscape has changed dramatically. But in the last year alone, you hear all about this Forbidden Door stuff. Obviously, you've been a part of it as well, showing up in Impact while you've been in AEW the last year, which has been cool. For yourself, I was always curious when you left WWE in 2020, came to AEW that same year. Was there ever the thought, and obviously it coincided with the pandemic, like literally the exact time, like a week or two later, you were on that first pandemic show. Was there ever the thought of popping up here or there? Because I know at that time you were kind of commenting on watching all the products, which you do anyway, showing up here as Big Money Matt or doing the broken stuff in Impact or NWA? Or was it always like, listen, when I'm done in WWE, it was AEW all the way at that point?
Yeah, it was definitely going to end up being AEW eventually. There were different ideas I had about doing other stuff, maybe Impact, whatever, even NWA. I mean, I spoke with all those people, at the end of my WWE deal,
Mm-hmm.
but just the pandemic had hit, and then we were just kind of stuck. The world was froze. We didn't know what this virus was going to end up being or doing, and just everything was so limited in what you're going to do. And as you said, I debuted Broken Matt Hardy on the first ever empty arena pandemic show for AEW, which was rotten in the big scheme of things, but it is what it is. And in business, you just you take whatever you have to work with and you make the most out of it.
I feel like if you make a list of like the most memorable AEW debuts, obviously it was rotten, like you said, because there was no fans there. But I feel like it would crack the top 5 because it is so memorable, because it was that first pandemic show. I feel like regardless of what people think of this period without fans, thankfully we've kind of eased out of that. People will always remember you showing up on the same show, obviously as Brody Lee earlier on in the evening, and how epic that show was. And it's kicked off this great run for you in the last almost exactly 2 years as we speak right now, which is crazy to think it's been that long. How wild is it? You mentioned earlier coinciding with 30 years of yourself in the business, getting back with Jeff, doing all these cool indie gigs, might be facing the Briscoes next month of Big Time Wrestling or SAT, either top team, Big Time Wrestling. Yourself and Jeff obviously facing the Major Brothers, Major, whatever their new tag team name is, Matt Cardona and Brian Myers obviously coming up as well. How cool is it to have that coincide with your 30-year anniversary in the business?
It's very cool. I mean, Jeff and I, we both made that deal to one another. We want to end our careers the way we began our careers. So we're getting the opportunity to do that now. Just kind of all the planets have aligned. So I'm really excited about how 2022 is going to turn out for the Hardys. I think it's going to be a great, great year. And we're very, very much excited to be teaming again and having some first time matches, which is going to be rare. We've gone long enough without teaming that there's all these fresh matchups out there. And there's so many great tag teams in the world. And like, the AEW tag team division is jam packed. It is overflowing. So, if it ends up, we end up doing something at AEW, I think that would be really cool too.
It would have got to be a part of the what's it called? The championship, not chase, the expedition of gold. Obviously, it seems like it's not quite over yet because there is a couple sets of tag team titles you guys could still accomplish.
Yeah, there is a little bit of gold left to procure.
You talked earlier about the broken Matt Hardy character. I know obviously with you and Jeff getting back together, it's just kind of not old school Matt and Jeff. It's like modern day Matt and Jeff, the Matt and Jeff of 2022, which is cool to see because I feel like when you guys were in WWE for the most recent run, that was like they were really trying to push the Hardy Boys, like, which is great too, Team Extreme. But this is more like the more mature experience Matt and Jeff going at it in 2022, which is cool. Your thoughts on that and potentially at some point doing a Broken Hardys run, if the cards were to align and if it made sense to do so again?
Yeah, I definitely think when we start this era of teaming with one another, it's going to be a basic man, Jeff Hardy. The Hardys that you remember, working in our up-to-date styles. But if something did happen where we could do a broken Matt Brother Nero thing, I think he would love to do it as well. He enjoyed the hell out of that also, man. He had a lot of fun doing that Brother Nero thing, and he really embraced it and enjoyed it. So I don't know, as they say in the wrestling business, never say never.
Never say never. Time will tell. I think his 90 days is up, obviously, in early March. We got a couple more weeks to that to look forward to. But again, like you yourself in AEW, involved with so much right now with the HFO and the Andrade stuff. And there's a lot going on right now, in addition to the Jeff stuff on the independent scene that fans can look forward to as well. Just yesterday, I know you had tweeted about it yesterday, but the timing is crazy. The whole, Cody Rhodes leaving AEW thing, that making major mainstream news. You already commented it on Twitter and put up that great picture of you and Cody from a few years ago when you were broken, Matt, which was cool. Talk a little bit about that and the influence that Cody's kind of had, because obviously he's so instrumental in AEW, and you guys kind of have a little bit of a history as well.
Yeah, I mean, Cody obviously is one of the forefathers of AEW. Him and Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, that they were kind of the guys that were like leading the charge as far as creating AEW. Then they got with Tony Khan, and then he made things happen. He made AEW a reality. So it's going to be really interesting, and I wish Cody the best of luck in whatever he ends up doing. But it's going to be very weird not having him around at AEW, and I'm sure whatever he ends up doing, he's going to kill it. He's going to do great at it.
Yeah, no, obviously Cody Rhodes is great, so I'm sure he'll kill it wherever he goes, like you said. I mean, it was surprising, but at this point, being in the business for 30 years, does anything really surprise you? I mean, especially with the current landscape of wrestling, you've seen it all, you've experienced it all. As surprising as that was, does anything truly shock you nowadays with wrestling?
Not really. I mean, I'm kind of at that point where you just know anything can happen. It's pro wrestling, and we kind of control our own destinies, and just don't ever be surprised, because anything can happen in this insane industry.
Exactly. I mean, in the last 48 hours alone, from the Steve Austin stuff on Monday, that on Tuesday. I mean, obviously you and Jeff getting back at on the indie scene in the last, the upcoming months, which is crazy. So like you said, anything can happen in wrestling, which is cool. Kind of going off that, in the last couple of years of your career, do you have any one favorite moment that you've had, let's say dating back to in the last 10 years, let's say from your time through Impact, AEW, going back to WWE, the return, I was there, Orlando, that would obviously lead the list. That was incredible. Beyond that though, any one favorite in-ring moment that you've had in recent years?
Obviously the WrestleMania 33 return was a very, very big deal. I thought it was great. And it's hard not to, me personally, I'm a big fan of like the final deletion, the whole magic we created with the whole broken universe. It was so cool that got so over and so popular. For the longest time, there would be fans asking me like, oh my God, are you guys going to do another TLC match? When are you going to do another TLC match, with you and your brother? And then after we did the final deletion, there were people asking, when are you going to do another final deletion match? When are you going to do that? It was just so crazy and so different and so odd. And it really worked and got over, especially like it was a very viral cult-like following that it had. So that was a lot of fun to think out of the box and create something so different and for it to get over as big as it did.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy too, like you said, that people are always asking for more of the final deletion stuff. And it is wild when people really kind of sit back and think about it. You were able to do that in Impact starting there, do one in WWE, which I don't think people realize how impressive of a feat that is. They were able to get Vince McMahon and everyone else involved in WWE with the way that things work there to do that, which is wild. And then to be able to do it in AEW within the time span of like 2 or 3, 4 years is really crazy, which is really cool. And the TLC stuff too, like you said, oh, when are we going to see another TLC match with you and Jeff? Is it crazy to think that of everyone that was involved in those original TLC days, Bubba, Devon, Edge, and Christian now back, which is crazy in and of itself. It's, I think the only time we've seen you guys all together in one place in recent years was at the Hall of Fame when the Dudley Boys went in. It's crazy that it just never really stars aligned to get you guys all in one place ever again. Not that we would see another triple threat TLC match in 2022 or 2020, whenever it would have been, but it is crazy to think that you guys, of them coming back and you guys just leaving, you just missed each other a little bit, because the Dudleys were back in the company a few years before you guys were.
Yeah, it is. Just the planets did not align as far as everyone being in, at one place to have like some sort of the possibility of having a TLC match. But I'm very happy for both Adam and Jay that they're back both healthy and able to wrestle again and like go out on their own terms. That's very cool for both of those guys.
Yeah. And kind of going back to what you were saying earlier about your recent in-ring years and your favorite matches and moments and stuff like that. It's cool now because we're seeing the big money match stuff for now, but you're still getting the delete stuff in there during your matches. So we get the delete, we get big money Matt. Was that like a conscious decision to kind of form your different personalities into one? And obviously you're always evolving, you're always trying new stuff, but was that a conscious thing that, because now that we have fans back, they can do the delete stuff, but you also get to do the big money match stuff as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think once you blaze a new trail and become a new character, that there's always going to be parts and traits of that character that are going to remain with you.
Yep.
And I feel like even though I'm not necessarily doing the Broken Matt Hardy character, the delete taunt is something that people really like. So I feel like it'd be silly not to incorporate it into the things I'm doing currently, because it is something I've done. So obviously I would still do it. So I'm very glad, I can do Big Money Matt, I can throw in a delete, I can throw up the Hardy Boyz guns, whatever it may be, so I roll everything into one. And I think going forward, I'm going to be focused on being a more authentic Matt Hardy, which is like the Matt Hardy you see here, very, very realistic, based in reality, although I'll have traits from all those different personas and characters that I have obviously played and performed in the past.
Yeah, and we kind of got to see a little bit more of this realistic Matt Hardy during that Sammy Guevara feud a few years ago, kind of going into it, I think it was the tables match on Dynamite a little bit. So we've seen a lot of different shades of yourself on AEW TV in the last 2 years alone. I think it was on the most recent podcast where you were answering questions and talked about the one thing that you and Jeff wish you could have done while were in your most recent run in WWE. I think it was the tag team stuff with the Usos or doing a final delete type match with them. For yourself as a single star, was there anything that you wish you could have done before you had left there? If you had the ability to do so, and leading the list, would it have been doing the big money match stuff? Because I feel like them not going with that was a big missed opportunity on their part, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I try not to have any regrets.
Yeah.
Wrestling with everything that I do and move forward. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there are guys, if I would have had more of a singles run, guys that maybe I would have liked to had a one-on-one match with. There's so many talented guys there that are really good. Roman is one that stands out, which I really enjoy the stuff he's doing now. It's been a lot of fun to have a match with him. Even a match with Brock again would have been fun to have that on one, a one-off, especially because we have a little history in the past too, but it's no biggie, in the big scheme of things. If we could have had those things, that would have been cool, but they didn't materialize, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. Now we get to see all this cool stuff with you now in AEW and beyond. And as we wind down here, Matt, you mentioned before how busy you are. I know you watch a lot of TV in your off time, a lot of good shows. You're constantly tweeting about it. Other ways that you spend your free time and other shows that you would recommend that people should check out?
Oh man, I fell in love with watching like a television drama series over Breaking Bad and Dexter, True Blood. The most recent thing I watched was the fourth season, part 1 of Ozark, which was a lot of fun. Yeah. And I've went back over the last couple of years, especially when I'm traveling. If I can download something, I typically watch stuff whenever I'm flying. That's kind of my gig. I got to go back and watch The Sopranos. I watch The Wire. I watch The Shield. So all those things were a lot of fun. There's a lot of good TV out there, especially now. There's so much content out there. It's crazy. You can't even keep up with everything.
There's a million streaming services. Like you said, there's like a million different shows that you can watch. So, there's a lot of different stuff that people could check out right now, which is cool. Another random question for you. Coolest part of the Hardy compound, whether we've seen it on TV in these various matches or not, one thing that people may not know about the Hardy compound, what do you think is like the coolest thing or one thing on the Hardy compound that you're most proud of that you were able to, if you're able to share with people?
A couple of things. One, my gym that is in my house, which I love. It's just nice being able to wake up and roll out of bed and walk downstairs to work out. And two, I was going to say the movie theater and the arcade that we worked on, myself and my wife at our house, is really, really cool. And during the summer, I love my pool because it's nice to be able to roll out of bed and just walk outside and jump in the pool too, especially when it's hot. It's very relaxing.
Have you watched any good movies in that movie theater lately or not recently?
Let me think. The last thing that we watched in there
could be a kids movie too.
Yeah, I think it was the last time we were there was a kids movie. Mm-hmm. The last thing that I feel like we really watched there, because my wife got real into when the Dexter series came just recently, the New Blood Dexter series came out. We actually watched that every week in the movie theater. We would record it and then wait a few minutes after it started, we would go down and watch that. And she got really into it. So that was the last thing I think technically I'd watched in the movie theater, the Dexter New Blood series.
That's got to enhance the experience, right? Because it's on the big screen. So it's got to make it that much better.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. And you have that feel like we have movie theater chairs and everything in there. So it does feel different. Like You're not just watching TV. It's more of an experience.
Yeah, exactly. People could check that out on the Matt Hardy brand YouTube channel. And, like I said, all the dates are on there as well for all the stuff that you guys have coming up as the Hardy Boyz on the indie scene, which is cool. Any one team, last question for you, Matt, any one team that you see out there? You mentioned AEW's tag team division, all the freelance tag teams right now. It's a crazy time too. We have the Briscoe brothers. They're not kind of anywhere right now. Brian and Matt Cardona Myers, they're not really set to one place right now. So that match is a possibility. Maybe not one team, I guess, but other teams that you guys look forward to facing in the next couple of months and the remainder of 2022.
Man, I got to tell you, I'm not going to lie. I'm a big fan of the Young Bucks. Yep. I would love to do another Hardy Boyz Young Bucks at some series, another Hardy Boyz Young Bucks series at some point in time.
People can look forward to that in Northeast Wrestling as well, because that happened, I think, 7 or 8 years ago. So you got to run it back almost a decade later. But people could check you out there in April. You're going to be in Webster with Big Time Wrestling next month, and obviously every Wednesday on Dynamite, and obviously new episodes of the podcast on Podcast, The Extreme Life of Matt Hardy, yourself, and John Alba. Matt, this has been great. I always look forward to this. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to catching you soon.
You got it, man. We'll take care. And thank you guys very much who have tuned into the podcast every single Friday. I'm enjoying it. It's a new journey I'm embarking on, and I've had a lot of fun learning about it. So thank you guys for supporting us.
Many more episodes to come. Like I said, people can check it out every single Friday and all the favorite podcast platforms and Podcast Feed as well. So Nate, thanks, Matt. You and John do great work. I look forward to the next one.
Thanks, Graham. Take care, man.